Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bearded Mystic podcast, and I am your host, Rahul N Singh. Thank you for taking out the time today to either watch or listen to this podcast episode. Today, I'm going to be talking about something that is important for me to kind of let out. I think the reason for this is growing up, I never had to really pick a spiritual path. I was given a spiritual path and I was able to follow it. Once I became a teenager, I picked that path for myself personally. And, you know, when you go to a spiritual place again and again and again, you can get complacency. And you can start, because you don't develop further, everything you hear tends to be the same thing repeated again and again. And because you're not doing any of the work anyway, you're just going there doing the basic thing of attending, you kind of get stuck in this kind of cycle of just going, listening, finding it boring, going home, and that continues. Now, I may listen to the same thing again and again, week in, week out. It may not be deep. It may be deep. And does it affect me today? Somewhat. There's been times when I feel that I didn't learn anything and that kind of disturbs me. But last week, I decided that I'm going to do something different, and that's what I'm sharing with you today. That difference is that even if I hear the same thing again and again, or if I feel like I haven't learned anything today, or I felt that the 2 hours I spent going to satsang wasn't fruitful, how about if I changed the way I listened? And actually, and I put this into practice yesterday, so maybe in a couple of weeks I'll speak again about it. But what I did this time was, obviously in those 2 hours I will always be in the awareness of formless awareness. That's kind of the practice that I do anyway. That's always there in the background. And then you have the thoughts that the speaker talks about, or a song that you hear, a bhajan, or you just listen to that. And what I did this time was, whatever I listened to, I elevated the thought. So in my own mind, not saying that their thought didn't need elevation, that their thought needed elevation. No, how would I make it interesting for me? And so this is interesting, right? So in the background, awareness remains. That does not change. Now we're going into the thinking faculty, the intellectual faculty. So this is different. So I'm not talking about remaining in awareness. I'm talking about something a bit different now. So when we're listening to the thoughts, I would just listen and I'll be like, okay, how does this relate to me today in my spiritual practice? Not, oh, is it a deep spiritual thought or is it not? How about if I looked at, well, how would I develop this? So if somebody talked about loving everyone, I know it's a very basic thing, and somewhat people think it's a cliche thing to say in spirituality, but okay, what does loving everyone mean? Okay, so first thing I did was I looked at, do I love everyone? I don't know. Do I hate anyone? I don't hate anyone. Do I dislike some people? Yes. Does that stop me from loving them? No. But if I dislike someone, does it hinder me expressing my love for them? Yes, it could. Okay, so let's look into that then. Why is it that I'm not loving everyone? Because if you can hinder that love, that means I don't love everyone, right? So then you can find out the little dents that you have in your understanding or in your experience. See, it's not important about getting to realization. I think getting to realization, anybody can do. I think it's rare that someone gets there. That's my personal opinion. And that's also shared in the Bhagavad Gita. Sri Krishna says the same thing. But when it comes to practically living, like humility, am I really humble? Yeah. Am I really, do I really consider myself to be a humble person? Has there been times when my ego has creeped in, that I feel like I'm better than somebody? And that has happened. And so I have to check, why did that occur? Was it something that was factual, or was it something that I felt some level of pride for, some level of personal agenda in? So, when we do this type of introspective kind of work, we're able to see how the teachings are really affecting us. We can get to know our true nature as Brahman. That's fine. I don't think that's the difficult part. The difficult part is the result of that. There are certain expectations. I remember reading Swami Dayanandaji's he had a book called The Value of Values, and it's the values. I can't remember the actual number of values, but basically an enlightened person will have that many. It's in chapter 13, I think, from verse 8 onwards. There's a list of the qualities an enlightened being should have, because Arjun asks, but how can I recognize that person? What kind of qualities do they have? So this is when Sri Krishna expresses those qualities. And in my opinion, that's a good barometer for people to check if they know an enlightened person. Now, for someone like me who's on the path, who's a seeker, that's a good way to see, where am I on the path? Now, quite a number of people may turn around and say, I find spirituality boring. It's just the same thing said and again and again. And it comes back to this. It's only boring because you didn't know what to do with the teaching. Yeah, frankly, that's what happens. Even if you've listened to everything and you think it's basic and you think it's mid, or you think it's, not that deep, maybe the shallowness is not in the teaching, but in the receiver of the teaching. If I claim to be a deep thinker, then even the most shallow of thoughts, I can make into something deep. I can transform it. And that's true. See, when you see things from the perspective of Brahman, from formless awareness, from the Nirgun Brahman, so I'm talking about the vast aspect of Brahman. So let's go into Saguna Brahman here, and let's go into the attribute of vastness. Now, a simple teaching can have vast outcomes. And that's where the rubber meets the road. You then see, how can you make that simple teaching into something vast? And what I find these days in spirituality is we jump from one video to another, one text to another, but we don't actually spend time understanding one verse or one line or one poem as a whole. We just jump on to the next thing. We jump onto the next Upanishad. We jump onto the next aphorism, sutra in the Brahma Sutras. We don't actually spend time to understand that one sutra. Same thing with the Bhagavad Gita. Do we actually understand that verse? And this is where I find today, although we may claim to be intellectual, although we may claim to be more we tend to be utilizing our intellect more, and we want rationality and logic, but at the same time, we're not spending the correct amount of time actually exploring the teaching within. And one thing I've always done is compare what I know of as formless awareness and matching each line to what I read or listen to against that. Now, anything that doesn't match that formless awareness, I don't entertain it. I just put it to the side. But whatever does, which is majority of the case, I spend time and I explore. And this is more important than, reading many books, listening to many talks, watching many talks, and thinking one knows Vedanta. The whole point of Vedanta is to know yourself, to know how to expand yourself. And when I'm talking about this yourself, I'm talking about the Atma. I'm not talking about you, the personality. And the more you live as the Atma, the more you live a deeper life. So if you find something boring, it's a representation of your dullness in the mind, so the tamas gun, rather than the sattvic gun. If you are full of a sattvic mind, then boundlessness, purity is your way. And that's what I find, is that when we change our approach, we gain so much. So really, it's a short video today. I know it's not as long as I normally do, but I just wanted to share that, and let me know, what do you think? Do you feel like spiritual teachings, do you do the same thing with spiritual teachings? Like, what's your method? Like, if you read something, what do you do? Do you write notes about it? How do you approach your spiritual practice? I just wanted to share what I've gone through recently, and it's something, and I think what triggered the practice actually was yesterday. I listened to my guru, and she said that it's not about the quantity, the amount of times you go to satsang or the amount of minutes you spend in satsang. It's actually about the quality, like what are you doing in those minutes. And I was thinking, if I find that the intellectual capability of most of the speeches is below me, but being aware of formless awareness, there's nothing higher than that. So why isn't my time spent doing that instead of criticizing the apparent thoughts that are lower than what I think is high spiritual teachings? So changing my approach, I changed my energy. So where I could have got up from satsang feeling frustrated, instead I had a good time because I'm resting in formless awareness. I'm also even if the teachings are rather simple, I'm able with my intellect expand upon it, because that's the gift that has been given to me through the mind, and why not use it for a positive purpose? And so just let me know your thoughts. Let me know how you feel with your spiritual practice, what are you doing, and and if this video has helped you, let me know, because sometimes it's hard until you get feedback about how people feel about listening to your stuff. There's little to know what's doing well. So do like this, do comment, do subscribe, do join my Discord server, say hi to me there, ask questions. I love talking about spirituality. I love writing about spirituality. So whenever I get a moment to do that, trust me, I would always find time for it. So but yes, okay. Take care, everyone. Namaste.